Hey everyone, so imagine, if you will, you are back in the 1980s or early 90s. Imagine you are having a conversation with someone about free speech and specifically if we should be banning certain books. You run through the usual list of controversial books, Mein Kampf, The Anarchist Cookbook, the Kama Sutra, and so on and so forth. Now, what if someone from the year 2018 shows up? That person will interject and tell you that you're wasting your time. It doesn't really matter how good your arguments may or may not be about banning these books, because just in 1 or 2 decades, you will be able to send any book or any literature to the other side of the planet digitally as bits at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. And whoever you send it to can do the same, and whoever they send it to can do the same, and so on. Once one person has one piece of information, in less than half an hour, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people on every continent on the planet will have access to that information. Now, the people from the 1980s or early 90s will look at you as if you have lost your mind. They would think that there's clearly something wrong with your brain and you need medical attention, and they would not be too crazy for thinking that. Then after you leave, they will naturally resume their conversation on if we should ban books. Okay, so this is the exact position that gun control supporters might find themselves in today and will certainly find themselves in the future. We have 3D printed guns now. It's a thing. There are several organizations like Defense Distributed that deal directly in 3D printed guns. All it will take in the future for someone to get a gun, even a fully automatic gun, is for one OBJ or STL file to become available or to be created and to be put on the internet, and there you go. Everyone will have access to any form of gun they want, and people can spread this file at literally the speed of electrons traveling through a wire. So the conversation on gun control and gun legislation is as pointless and futile as saying we should make sure that no one is able to read Mein Kampf again. Maybe you've got all the best reasons in the world why no one should read Mein Kampf again, and maybe you're able to convince people in their own lives to avoid reading Mein Kampf, but that's the best you can do. To advocate legislation to make sure no one reads Mein Kampf again would be ineffective, to say the least. You might as well be punching the ocean to make sure the tide goes out. So given this, anyone who devotes their time to advocating for gun legislation, I have to criticize them for wasting time and taking up energy they could use to advocate for real constructive ideas on how to diminish gun violence. I know I've mentioned these ideas before, but get rid of the war on drugs. This has a multi-pronged reducing effect on gun violence. Number 1, it eliminates murder as being profitable in the illicit drug markets. No longer would drug cartels and gangs have a monumental financial motive to kill the guy down the block who sells plants that make you feel funny. Those hundreds, if not thousands, of yearly murders would be gone overnight. Boom, you've just reduced gun violence. Number 2, eliminating the drug war would free up resources for law enforcement to actually do useful things, like perhaps follow up with people who called and reported a really strange, erratic guy who posts on social media about how he wants to shoot up a school. That would be a bit more useful, I think, than going after plant and pill salesmen. Here is another potential benefit of ending the war on drugs. Perhaps marijuana is a better option in some cases than these psychotropic drugs that many of these shooters were on. I am not saying that these pharmaceutical drugs are the root cause of it. I freely admit I am not knowledgeable enough on these drugs to turn that statement into concrete. But I do know that marijuana and even ecstasy, LSD, and psilocybin mushrooms have been shown to have promise in treating many of the more common mental illnesses we hear about. Again, I admit that that's not a slam dunk argument on my part, but it's worth looking into, and unfortunately our federal government puts up roadblock after roadblock in being able to thoroughly research this. Another thing you could do that I mentioned in my last video, boycott the mainstream media when they plaster the shooter's name, face, motivation, their entire life story, and their body count all over your television screen. All this does is to serve to inspire the next potential whack job that wants to be the next nationally known antagonist. Don't watch the mainstream media. Make sure their viewership takes a hit when they do this stuff so they can learn their lesson and knock it off. That could easily be more beneficial than any pointless laws you're successful in passing. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you.